guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we're continuing with our health and beauty series and we're talking all about vitamin D. And before we get started with this video, don't mind the sounds in the background. So we've got some nuts activating in the oven and there's a guy out the front with a whippersnapper. Right, we're going to make our video.
And we try to film, but I'm sure you can't hear it too much. I've got all the doors closed. Okay, so let's start off this video by talking about vitamin D benefits. Now, there are so many benefits to vitamin D, it's actually a little bit overwhelming when you start digging through the research. But we did our best to bring you like the most important and interesting facts about vitamin D when it comes to your health. But we'll start off with the fact that vitamin D is actually a hormone, and you've probably heard that before. So there are receptors throughout our body, so throughout our tissues and throughout our cells, that are actually activated by vitamin D. So you can expect that having adequate vitamin D levels is going to affect so many different areas of our health. But the first one that you've probably heard a lot about is bone health.
So vitamin D actually helps calcium to be absorbed, and a vitamin D deficiency actually causes rickets. So rickets is a condition of our bones where you'll often see bow legs. So children in England used to get that back in the day. But it's actually happening again. It's seeing a bit of a comeback because people aren't going out in the sun and are wearing sunblocks all the time and things like that. That is really reducing our vitamin D levels. So vitamin D is really important for the health of our bones. And when we're looking at the health of our bones, it's also really important to know that vitamin D works with K2 and calcium. So it's kind of a synergistic thing again, as we kind of talked about in the past. So you don't just want to be getting your vitamin D, you want to be getting a good balance of all of those vitamins.
So one of the second really significant benefits about vitamin D is how much it helps our immune system. So having adequate vitamin D levels means that our immune system functions better, so our immune cells can actually do their job better, fighting infections and different foreign particles and bacteria, things that enter our bodies. We know that vitamin D has some strong antimicrobial benefits. It helps our body to produce antimicrobial peptides, and it also protects our gut lining and supports the formation of those nice tight cell junctions. So that keeps bacteria, endotoxins and big food particles and things from entering our bloodstream and causing infections and things associated with leaky gut. Vitamin D also has some powerful anti-inflammatory benefits. So it actually decreases the levels of inflammatory cytokines in our systems, so that really brings down inflammation in the body, which we know is linked to many different diseases. For example, they've actually found low levels of vitamin D in people with inflammatory disorders such as inflammatory bowel disease in particular. And another example of vitamin D's benefits is the fact that many people with autoimmune disease are low in vitamin D. So you can see that having enough vitamin D is so important for our immune system and to regulate processes like inflammation.
And so it isn't all about these really serious conditions, but vitamin D can also help to protect us from colds and flus that we can get in the winter. And it's actually really interesting because a few studies have found that our colds and flus are actually higher in the winter because of a lack of vitamin D. So it's not all just, about, change in the temperature and we get sick.
Well, yeah, it's interesting now as well because we live in an environment where we're kind of huddled together all of the year. It's not just winter. So, we're always catching the public transport and working in confined spaces, but it's when our immunity falls a bit lower during the winter, if we're not getting vitamin D, that we can fall more susceptible to flus and things.
And vitamin D is actually also protective against depression and also certain forms of cancer. So specifically there's a lot of studies on vitamin D and the association with breast cancer.
So there's some really good reasons to make sure you've got enough vitamin D. So how to get enough vitamin D? Now, the recommended guidelines on vitamin D, they kind of vary country by country. And the way that we measure vitamin D levels in the blood also is a little bit different between US versus other countries. Here in Australia we use, I think, nanomoles per litre, whereas in the US they measure it in nanograms per milliliter, if I'm not wrong. So the Vitamin D Council recommends a level of 50 nanograms per milliliter. So in Australian terms, that would be around 125 nanomoles per litre. So it's really worth getting your levels tested, given that vitamin D is really important for our health, like immediately and in the long term. So if you're curious about your vitamin D level, I definitely recommend you go and get it tested because it's actually more common than you'd think. I've heard statistics around like up to 50% of people can be deficient in vitamin D, and that's around the world. I think in Australia it's 1 in 3 Australians are thought to be low in vitamin D.
So when it comes to getting your vitamin D, there's a few different ways that we can get it. So the most obvious one is from the sunlight, but we've also got food and supplementing. So the best way that we can get our vitamin D is through the skin. So vitamin D is synthesized from cholesterol in our skin when we're exposed to UVB light. But the amount of vitamin D that we synthesize is really going to depend on the time of day, the color of your skin, and location.
It's actually surprising how much vitamin D we do produce by our skin as well. And of course it does depend on your skin color and where you're living, but I think sometimes it's easy to underestimate how much our body can produce naturally if we are in the right conditions. So for example, like a fair-skinned person like me in Australia, based on current guidelines, I could probably get enough vitamin D for the day by spending 5 to 10 minutes with my arms exposed in that window where it's like between 10 and 3 p.m. You have those UVB rays coming through. But if you're a darker person, you may need 20 minutes plus. It could be up to a number of hours. So you can see why
Skin color
really makes a difference, and then also where you're located. So where we live, it's a little bit closer to the equator, whereas if you were living in Sweden or somewhere very northerly or somewhere very southerly, you may not get very much UVB rays at all. So it can be pretty tricky even if you're getting outside to get that vitamin D. And we thought we'd also note that when you get that little pinkness on your skin, that really indicates you're getting a lot of vitamin D. So we've read that for a woman wearing maybe a bikini or very skimpy clothes, if you get like a little pinkness all over, that's the equivalent of up to 20,000 IUs. So if you take vitamin D supplements, that's quite a significant amount produced by the skin alone. And the interesting thing is that natural vitamin D produced on our skin circulates for 2 to 3 times longer than vitamin D that we get from food or supplements. So if you can get vitamin D from the sun, like you're living close to the equator, it's really good to get out and expose some arms without sunblock or your legs just for 10-15 minutes a day. It can really make a difference to your vitamin D levels, and it's completely free.
So it's also worth mentioning that you can get some vitamin D from your foods, but it's only going to make up about 10% of your overall vitamin D requirements. So vitamin D is found in a few foods. Some of them are fatty fish,
I think beef liver, and full-fat dairy.
You can also look into supplementing your vitamin D, so you can get straight off the shelf vitamin D, and that usually is around 1,000 IU to 5,000 IU. So that's a good range to go within, and you probably want to work with a doctor or a healthcare professional if you're going to go higher than that. And it can be necessary sometimes if you're trying to correct a deficiency or an insufficiency.
And absolutely if you're living in a really northerly or southerly location, because in those winters you just get nothing.
Yeah, definitely. There are some places where that is literally you don't get any vitamin
zero. So
it's important to be supplementing. So another good supplemental source of vitamin D is cod liver oil. So specifically a good one to go for is cod liver oil that is being combined with butter oil. So butter oil is also very rich in vitamin K2, which we know works with vitamin D to really benefit our heart health and the health of our bones and skeletal system.
Nice teeth.
So we really like cod liver oil as well because it is a whole food source, so it really comes with the complete package of everything that it needs to do its job in the body.
Because there are some concerns. You have to be a bit careful when you're looking at supplements and supplements that you're using often, because we just don't know the effects of isolating certain nutrients. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that you're really inspired to go out and get some good vitamin D. And if you have any questions for us about vitamin D or nutrients you'd like to hear about in the coming episodes of the series, then leave us a comment below. And also, if you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, come and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye guys.
Bye.